Welcome back. You're watching Hard Copy, and tonight we're examining the role private universities are playing in Nigeria and asking if they're to blame for falling standards of tertiary education in the country. Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi of Bayes University is here with us. So is Dr. Abdulhamid Sulaiman, an associate professor at the University of Abuja. Well, gentlemen, just before we went on that break, we're talking about private universities as glorified secondary schools. You say that's an unfair comment.
Very, very unfair.
Why?
Very unfair comment. You see, at the time, the Nigerians, felt there was need to expand access to university, provide opportunity for higher education. The university sector was deregulated. Private university started coming in. And of course, we have a regulatory body called NUC that has provided the criteria for the establishment of private universities. You understand? In the whole, I've been privileged to be part of an interim board for the establishment of preparative, and I knew what NUC took us through. You understand? Before the takeoff, right? And of course, when these private universities come on board, they rely heavily on academic staff in public universities for the takeoff of some of their faculties. And as I speak with you, many of my colleagues in public universities are either visiting lecturers in private university or they are doing their sabbatical there. Some have even crossed over to that place. Right. So the question then is that I consider that as unfair because it amounts to self-indictment. If you are blaming a system for which you are partially a part, you should not have the moral gumption, to condemn it so seriously. So
you're reluctant to self-indict. But, let's look at when an institution, I mean, some of these institutions, you visit them. This is without prejudice to the institutions that are doing very well. Because there will be those that are doing very well. But when you visit some of them, you really have to ask the question, is this a university? So let us talk about NUC. Would you say that the National Universities Commission is failing in its role as regulator of both private and public institutions?
To some extent. Yeah, I mean, I think...
You're about to say to a large extent.
Well, I think I want to be economical with words. I don't want to make sweeping condemnation because, I believe that all stakeholders are making efforts, you understand, to, improve the system.
In what areas would you say they are failing?
Well, in the area of monitoring standard and regulating quality, right, especially of private universities. Part of the mechanism that has been put in place by NUC to ensure and monitor standard is what we call accreditation exercise that is carried out, at regular intervals. I think for many of the private universities that are not measuring up to standard today, so to say, the regulatory body to some extent has to blame because if the accreditation team they send to a private university conclude the assignment and bring in report sincerely, conclude the assignment honestly and sincerely, and then submit report. I expect that the NUC should be able to, implement recommendation arising from that report in order to ensure that private universities, improve in areas that they need to improve on, because that is the essence of, periodic accreditation.
What is your impression of NUC's accreditation process? Would you say that it has been thorough enough? And, right now we're saying that because of the failure in some areas, people are beginning to use the failures of some universities to, tar all the other universities. Do you have that impression?
I think my impression is that NUC, there are rooms for improvement, okay? But they have not really shirked their responsibilities, okay, in doing the vetting, the normal vetting that they're supposed to do. I've been a witness to several accreditation visits in my university, and I know the many things we went through to go through their requirements. To that extent, I won't say that they have not been up to the mark. There could be room for improvements, but we cannot absolutely say that they have been underperforming. Having said that, really, I also want us to be careful about this dichotomy between private and public university once again. Because what are public universities? Let's not think that because the university is public, then the standards are high. And because the university is private, the standards are low. What kind of public institution are we talking about, really? Are we talking about universities in the category of Ibadan, Lagos, ABU, and JOS? Or are we talking about state universities? You will say they are also public. You know, how do we contextualize their quality vis-a-vis those ones created some years ago? You know, what level of quality are we expecting those ones to churn out? You know, and how do we want to see? What are kind of arguments, you know, do we want to advance to say that, you know, those recent universities who are still trying, who are still growing, are better in terms of quality than the so-called private universities we're talking about? And I will tell you, Maokwe, I'm of Base University. Okay, I've been a visiting professor at American University of Nigeria. I'm exposed to Biola University. I have friends in Covenant University. And I do know that in another 5 years or so, these are some of the best universities that Nigeria will be talking about. And yet we're saying private university. That's why I'm saying that we should be careful the way we demonize, the way we call people names. It's a matter of portrayal. It's a matter of representation. And in trying to represent agencies of government, okay, both agencies of government, agencies of society, we have to be contextual.
Would you say that this is some kind of jealousy also coming from the public institutions? This dichotomy of some sorts that, you know, because we are public institutions and we'll be here for longer and we're more established, this baby is coming up right now, you know, just there, they're lowering the standards as the case might be.
I don't think so, and I think that jealousy, if it exists at all, is uncalled for. We are all stakeholders in a very critical enterprise, an enterprise that is very critical to national development, right? And that is why we have an NUC that is expected to maintain standard across board, whether private university, whether federal university, whether state university. I believe that we should look at it as, you know, a development unit that is meant to add value to, you know, this country. So that you know, jealousy is uncalled for if it exists at all.
Funding continues to remain a major challenge. I mean, public institutions right now, we know ASU is on strike. That's and they're looking for how to solve the matter. But it is a challenge not just for public institutions but also for private institutions. Now, some private institutions are saying that perhaps government should also create a funding of sorts. After all, the students who attend these universities are mostly all Nigerians, and as much as possible, Nigerian students should be able to, you know, get access to some funds to be able to attend, you know, pay the cost of tuition.
That call has been supported by ASU.
It has?
It has been supported by ASU. That, well, if we are going to talk about standard in the Nigerian university system, without prejudice to whether it is private or public, you understand, funding is very key. So ASU is not just about asking for funding for public university. It's also saying that there could be some form of, you know, support that can come from the government, you understand, to ensure that the private universities that are coming up also, you know, scale up the standard and then operate side by side with the public university. So it's been supported by, you know, ASU.
Dr. Denny,
so, and that is why the alleged jealousy is unfounded. How
do we ensure that, you know, proprietors, those who, you know, put their money into these universities, do not pressure them or do not, you know, go in, are not driven just by profit, but are also looking at, you know, the fact that they are contributing to a larger economy?
I'm not sure any private university was established because of profit or for commercial reasons. That may be, it might be, at best, be like a clandestine reason. But every university license was issued because somebody came up and said, you know, I want to preserve a name, I want to preserve a legacy, you know, or I want to further the ideals, the mission and vision of my institution. That is the primary thing, really. But you see, there might be derailments along the line. But the open thing, the philosophical thing is to say, I have a legacy to preserve, I have a name to advance, and I have some kind of virtues and values that I want to imbibe in generations unborn, or generations, upcoming generations, sorry.
I have to thank you most kindly, gentlemen, for coming on Hard Copy. We've totally run out of time. Well, Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi and Dr. Abdulhamid Ohozo Sulaiman, lecturers in different universities, one in public and one in a private institution. Thank you so much for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you.
Well, that's the program tonight. We look forward to continuing this conversation online. Do use the handles on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun. Good night.